So if you are with me, post to say, hello, I am here, I am ready to dive into the Nauthiz Rune, which is what we are going to be working with today. We've literally just got past the full moon in Largus. I don't know about you, but it was a pretty hefty full moon. But the sun is going to be moving into Nauthiz through the course of this week, which is why we're looking at Nauthiz. So the sun travels through all 24 of the runes through the course of the year, giving us an opportunity to work with each of them at a deep level over a 2-week period so that we can really take advantage of those runes' energies. And we're in the wintering runes, which can be challenges for people. They can come like this. Do I really want to go through these runes? And one of the things that comes up with the Nauthiz very frequently is people will talk about Nauthiz as being the rune of the dark night of the soul. It's this sense of it offering the path of suffering a little bit. And we also think, well, why would I want to be in the path of suffering? That's not the most comfy place to be. Moving through each of the runes in a sort of nice sequential way calls us into that sort of wintering of the self, or whether we have other big supermoons and things like that also causing challenges for us too. It can be quite a difficult time, and we can find that we're experiencing this dark night of the soul, and we can feel like, well, the Nauthiz Rune is very present for me, but it's present as that dark night. So what I wanted to do today is to offer to you a slightly different way of thinking about the dark night of the soul the Northern European soul road perspective. There are other ways that we can think about the dark night of the soul. So I'm going to offer you that different perspective on the dark night of the soul, what it's for and how we can work with it. And we're going to be talking about how to journey through that dark night of the soul and how the Nauthiz Rune can help us to do it. So for those who don't know the runes, their shapes, this is the Nauthiz Rune here. So it's a line with a sort of little diagonal line through it, often thought to represent the fire stick, drill hole, and then you can rub it, or you've got your sticks and you rub them together. So this is the stick being rubbed together, or sometimes it's thought of as being the thread that pulls the stick, and then the little fire is kindled within the drill hole. And so it's a slow process of kindling a fire during this period of need. The need fire is there's some form of challenge or suffering or something happening, and that's where we get this sense of the dark night of the soul with the Nauthiz Rune. But technically, it doesn't represent the dark night. It represents the need fire that we light during that time. And it can be thought of as happening through the whole wintering phase, which can be the wintering phase that we're experiencing externally, but it can also be a wintering phase that we're experiencing internally. So let me know when Nauthiz comes up for you. What are the first images? What are the first words that come into your mind when you think about Nauthiz? Certainly for me, over time, there's been that real sense of the fire and the effort that it takes to light that fire comes to you very strongly. I always get this image of a person who's alone. They're out on a hilltop. I don't know why they're out on a hilltop. Maybe it's just because I was born next to a hill and it feels like that sort of climbing of the hill. And then that sense of sitting through that dark night and then kindling my fire to call the sun back. It's sort of what comes through for me. But I would love to know for you, what comes through for you when you first think about the Nauthiz Rune. Is it that fire, or is it that sense of necessity, or is it that sort of there's like an emptiness in the stomach feeling that we can get as well? And I think that this is important for our understanding of the dark night of the soul. That if you look and you say, oh, what is the dark night of the soul? It's some form normally of like a spiritual crisis whereby you lose your sense of purpose or of meaning. It might have been that you've gone through some sort of existential crisis that's untethered you from what before felt like this is the meaning, this is the purpose, this is why I'm here, this is who I am, this is who I belong with. Now, all of those things that we create that sense of meaning and rooting and belonging and anchoring, and I know what's coming next and I know what I'm doing, all of those things we have. And then an event occurs, which we might think about as being the Hagalaz moment. I've got my rune cards to hand, but Hagalaz comes before Nauthiz in the rune cycle. So we have Wunyo, hooray, joy, belonging, I'm there, this is my moment, I'm feeling ecstasy and happiness and all of the things. And then Hagalaz comes along, which is this storm, it's this moment of crisis. So here's our Wunyo rune, so this is where we are, hooray, Wunyo rune, all good. Then we have our Hagalaz rune, which looks like a big capital H, it's not, oh, there we go. our Hagalaz rune. So we get that storm moment, the crisis moment. And then immediately after that comes Nauthiz. So it's this sense of I've been in that place of this place of crisis, and something is prompting me to go and light my need fire. If we think about that in terms of going out, lighting the need fire, it's probably because I'm cold. I'm cold or it's dark. And in the winter we light the need fire to ask the sun to return to us. And there are also other times of the year when we might not light the need fire to say we would like to invite in like fertility of the land or whatever it is. So the need fire becomes the wish or the desire that we have, and that we're calling that back. So that's our sort of context for the dark night of the soul. I can see there are people watching, people being very quiet in the comments. Either that or I can't see any more comments. So let me know, what does the Nauthiz Rune mean for you? How frequently has it come up for you? Does it feel good when it comes up? Does it feel like, oh, I'm not so sure? How does the dark night of the soul, how have you experienced that in the past? How has that manifested for you? So I'm going to talk a little bit about concepts of the dark night of the soul and what it can mean from a shamanic perspective. So if we think about a core shamanism, sort of a general, extracted, generic sense of different, very specific shamanic traditions across the world that have developed over very, very long periods of time. And then we extract some of the common themes that kind of rise from that. We have this sense of what's often called soul loss, which occurs when the soul fragments in some way. It normally happens because of a Hagalaz moment. We would consider that to happen within a Northern European context. We have a Hagalaz moment when I felt whole, I felt intact, and then something comes along and it disrupts that, and it literally sort of cracks open what before felt like a cohesive sense of self. And you can think about this in a psychological way. So you can think about it as being like the ego that suddenly gets blasted in some way or other. And then our ego feels challenged and difficult. And it feels like, oh, it's been disrupted. I thought I knew I was, and now I don't anymore. Or you can think about it as at a much deeper level, as encompassing the mind, the body, the spirit, the energy body. And then that fragmentation can happen across one or all of those different layers, which would be how we would think about this from a shamanic perspective. And within that context, the idea is that, I'm now in a place where I've had the Hagalaz moment. I'm now in my Nauthiz space. I'm experiencing a dark night of the soul. I'm feeling empty. Like I said, sometimes we can feel literally in the pit of the stomach, I'm feeling empty, or we can feel like the heart feels as if it's sort of closing in somehow. Often for me, I experience it as a sense of like a blockage that comes between the heart and the solar plexus, the place of love and the place of purpose is blocked. No, they don't feel as if they're connected in some way. Many different ways in which we can experience that sense of what, in a core shamanic perspective, we would refer to as soul loss. The idea is that you then go to a shamanic practitioner who goes out and they quest for the part of your soul that has gone off somewhere else through this process of fragmentation. It's often considered to be a trauma response. So Hagalaz is the trauma bit, and then Nauthiz is the suffering bit. We could go on further and we could talk a little further down the rune row. We'll be doing more lives on Isa later in this cycle, that sort of sense of numbness and of being frozen. We can move into spaces where if we don't address that sense of loss, if we don't light the need fire, or if we light the need fire but we don't have the patience to go through the cycle, we go into that sort of Isa space. And sometimes we have to be in that Isa space. We have to experience some of the winter before we then come to Yera, which is the sort of new cycle coming. So that's a bigger picture. Don't need to worry about that unduly at this point because we're focusing in on Nauthiz. So the shamanic practitioner goes, they find the soul part and they bring it back to you and they bring it into your body, and then you do work together in ceremony to integrate that soul part back. So that's our core shamanic perspective. But I want to bring to you now a more rune, northern traditionally understanding of what the dark night of the soul might mean and how we might think about soul loss in a slightly different way. So with the runes, we have the understanding that at any period of time, I'm there and I'm feeling whole. I'm there, I've completed a cycle, I'm feeling really great, and then Hagalaz comes along. And it's this rune that fractures and disrupts and destroys in some sense. But within the Northern European tradition, we have many cycles of destruction and creation that we can see happening through the myths. So, what I would like you to imagine here is that this Hagalaz moment isn't necessarily a trauma moment. It might be that something happens out there and it creates a sense of trauma, or it might simply be a fragmentation moment where the old self is preparing for a rebirthing. It's preparing for something new to come through. I've completed that cycle, or the change has occurred, and I need to evolve in response to that. And I can only do that through fragmenting what was my old self so that my new self can birth. Similar to the year, the day dies, all of these things. We're going through that process all the time. Every time we fall asleep, we're moving into a dark night of the soul, and we wake up different. We wake up born into a new day. So we have the idea of this destructive energy of Hagalaz then becomes something that's happening all the time. So it might actually be that we need to think about it in terms of, is this a difficult experience of conflict or a disruption of my sense of self through the course of the day that requires me to rethink myself and maybe to sort of do a little bit of self critique? Oh, no, I didn't act that. Wasn't actually my best self coming through there. What can I do differently? How can I light the need fire to say, no, I want to respond differently in the moment? So it could simply be a daily occurrence that requires us to evolve ourselves a little bit, to change ourselves a little bit. It could be a dark night of the soul, an experience that takes a little bit longer, or it could be something that's more like a trauma event where you would go and a very long dark night of the soul that you can't get yourself out of, and then you go and see somebody else. What we're going to be looking at is that sort of that middle point. You know, you can apply the same model to all three of these, but we're going to be looking at the middle point, which is this sort of sense of north is coming, and we feel the presence of Nauthiz in its absence because we're in the state of the dark and there is no fire. So, the second part of this different understanding of what happens during the dark night of the soul is that instead of seeing it, here's me, and then there's a part of me that fragments off, and it's like a little bundle of me that has no agency on its own. You know, and it goes off somewhere, and there's all sorts of, won't go into all of the different places that it can go and how it can get captured and all of those things. Loads of different traditions that work in different ways and work with spirit guides and landscapes and place to help you to bring that part back. But if you think about the myths and legends from within the Northern European lore, we might look at deities like Odin or Freya or Frigg, and you'll notice that many of them have animal spirits, attendant animal spirits. And then we might look at the soul lore, what we have is the body of soul lore about the way in which our ancestors conceptualized the soul. And say, okay, so they had this idea of very sort of discrete soul parts or parts that we could work with that were quite distinct, had different energies attached to them, worked in quite different ways. So I'd like you to imagine for a moment that that fragmentation is only the first stage. So Hagalaz fragments this sense of self, and then part of the soul takes on the role of the mystic. So the mystic is your questing self that goes out into the world, it's able to interact with spirit, able to journey out into the other world and do all of those things. It's able to bring things back from past workings and interacts with the unseen realm. But I'd like you to imagine that when your little soul part goes, instead of it being, oh, this is a moment of breaking, I'd like you to think about this as being a moment of questing. So that part of your soul may have been sent out. It might have been exiled. Absolutely. That it's like, oh, I don't like this part of me. So I'm going to pretend that it doesn't exist and it was not happening. It might be that you experienced real grief and that the part that's holding that grief for you. So it might be that the self has exiled that little soul part and gone, no, go away. I don't want you to be here. But it might also be that that soul part has chosen to go on a quest. And we can think about this in terms of, for those of you who've done a lot of work with me, you'll know we talk about Ingard, which is the realm of the known, and which is the realm of the unknown, where the shamanic practitioner goes to bring the soul part back. What I like you to conceptualize within the Northern European tradition, conceptualize is a long word, isn't it? Is that the soul part itself goes, okay, I need to go out into Utengard, into the realm of the unknown, in order to find the wisdom or the knowledge or the healing that I require. And then I'm going to bring it back to myself so that it can be integrated in one way or another. So this little soul part has agency in this context, and it's going out and it's doing its thing. And if we think about it in that way and think this part of me wants to return, and I'm going to trust that part that it's out there seeking the wisdom and the knowledge and the healing that is required. And my job, as in the rest of me, my job is to wait for it and to say, I believe in you and I know that you're doing your work out there and I'm ready to welcome you home. And this is where the mystic self, because this is what the mystic self does. The mystic self goes on into the realm of new ideas and new possibilities. I'm going to come back. I'm going to bring that back. That's brilliant. Those of you who have really strong mystic selves, you will be innovators. You'll be imaginative. You'll be problem solvers. That's what you are. There's nothing more wounding to a mystic than to return and to feel like they're not welcome, right? That their ideas aren't appreciated, that they are not wanted, that to feel misunderstood. And we can take that and think about that in terms of our individual soul parts as well, because it's still you, it's that part of you. Your mystic self is still going to be like, right, no, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do the thing, and then I'm going to bring it back. And if the self is like, no, I don't want to, you know, I I can't accept the grief that's in there, it's too much for me, or I can't accept the shadow that's me, the sort of the anger that I find in there, whatever it is, or I can't accept that that part of my life is over and that I'm now ready to start a different part, then that little soul part will be waiting and it won't be able to cross back over because it won't be welcomed home. And so this becomes a journey with the self and the part of the soul that's gone out, that has fragmented away, and looking at things, readiness, and being patient with each other, and saying, what can I do to welcome that part of me back, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute. But let's see what everyone has said. So I love Nauthiz. When it comes up for me, I always think I can then look at what I should be looking at to go deep. Yes, absolutely. And I think if you think about Nauthiz coming up in a rune reading, could very easily be saying, there's something here for you to look at. You need to, the need fire is sort of saying you need to light your own fire and take action to say, what is it that's trying to come back? Or what is it that I'm wishing for or desiring for, that my soul wants to quest for? Now, this process of the need fire is both a process of you lighting the need fire and saying, right, that's here, and of the part of the self that's going out with its little torch, sort of looking for what it is and trying to bring that back to you. So there's the sense of the Nauthiz Rune often says there's work to be done, there's a journey to be undertaken. And that is really often why we can feel that's a challenge, because we might go, well, I don't want to take that journey. I was happy before. And that is why we experience the Nauthiz Rune as a negative rune, because it's saying that that is in the past now, and in the present moment, we need to be calling in the future possibilities, which is the mystic self. And that can be challenging. If we want to go back in the past, I want it to be exactly like it was before. Thank you very much. I don't want this healing crisis illness thing, or I don't want this experience right now. Go away. And we associate the experience with the Nauthiz Rune rather than the Nauthiz Rune being the soul's attempt, strong, powerful attempt, to overcome that challenge. Now, that's what the Nauthiz Rune represents, the desire to overcome the challenge, or to journey through the challenge, or to find the next unfolding of the self. Maggie says, I feel like it's going back to basics in the Dark Night, and so I'll make sure one eats and has a shower and looks after one's basic needs while in the state of utter nothing. Yes, we're going to be talking about this a lot more when we're going to be doing the seer self with Nauthiz at the new moon, because the sun moves into Nauthiz and then we'll have the new moon. So we're going to look at that at the next session, because you're absolutely right. And it is that sense of, while that part of me is out there doing its thing, and my soul is seeking its next iteration, I need to take care of what's here, so that I'm like the welcoming committee. Why would my soul part that's out there doing its brave, amazing thing want to come back to me if I'm not even showering, I'm not taking care of my sleep. And also what you're talking about, Maggie, the sense of resting, replenishing, so that the repair work can be undertaken as that north part comes back, as the little mystic questing part of the soul comes back. Is to sort of say, how can I be the best welcoming committee I can be? And the answer to that is to look after myself really well, and to recognize that during this period of time, I am fragmented. I'm not broken. And I think that's important. We can feel like we are permanently broken. And the journeying through the runes and questing with the runes and using that cycle teaches us that we're not, we're evolving. But we have to undertake that journey of evolution ourselves. And part of that is the self-care bit. Nauthiz is the rune for shadow work, the rune of alchemy. Yes, it is the rune of shadow work because we light the fire, this intense, strong fire, and the shadows deepen, and we have to look at them. Oh, good. I'm glad that they will appear. Let me see if I can go back and see. So much fun. Okay, yes, I can see that, Suki, just saying you. So you've come in, you're having to pop out. That's absolutely fine. Come back, watch the rest of the session. So then if we think about what can we do in terms of that welcoming home and having patience, recognizing that it can be very easy to say, I just want it to be done. You know, can't it just be done really quickly? You know, can't it just be fixed really, really quickly? But the Nauthiz Rune teaches us patience, as does the Aether Rune that comes after the Rune of Ice. But the need fire takes effort to light, to kindle, and it requires us to sort of be in that space of the dark first and to say, what is this dark? What does it mean for me? More importantly, the dark teaches us the patience and the self-care and the rest, and that you're in your wintering phase, something has just happened, you just had a storm. It teaches us that. But the Nauthiz Rune is the rune of the fire itself. And it is asking us to connect powerfully and hopefully. When you feel that, oh, there's a block, or there's an absence, or there's a challenge, we can think about that as being because part of the energy body has left the building in order to go and evolve into the next version of you. And then it's going to come back, and it's going to be strong, and it's going to be powerful. But we have to be patient to allow it to come through. But we can invite it back. We can say, we're ready for you. We want to understand what it is that you're bringing back. So I like to work with the Nauthiz Rune. I'll get my drum in particular. I really like working with my drum, and I'll trace the shape of the Nauthiz Rune over my drum. I'll sing the Nauthiz Rune. I'll drum to offer energy to that part of me that is out there doing that work, to say, I've got your back. I know that you're there. I trust that you're out there. And to then invite it back to say, when you are ready, I'm here. This is where I am. Now come home to me. Brings into it a sound that fills the silence. So it starts to fill that silence that we can feel inside. And the rhythm allows that patience, and it allows us to have that sense of fullness that we often crave when we're in the place of the dark night of the soul. We're in that place of feeling empty and lost and alone. That fire is such a powerful calling of togetherness, of invoking the spirits of the land to be with us and drawing in our supporting spirit, our Desir circle, and our ancestral spirits to come and be with us and to sit with us around the fire. So although the person, when I look at the Nauthiz Rune, I do see it as something that we light alone, when it's lit, we can have that sense of being supported, being held while we're waiting for that to come through. So absolutely, working with your rune song and working with your drumming can be an incredibly healing act. The other thing that you can do, which I really like to do, is to actually write to the soul part while it's out journeying. So sort of say, thank you for taking on the whatever the experience is that you've gone through that has caused this dark night of the soul. And if you don't know what has caused the dark night of the soul, then you say, look, thank you for taking on the quest of finding out what it is that's brought me into this place of loneliness or despair, difficulty, and of challenge, and of not having the energy to sort of get up in the morning. Sort of say, okay, I know that you're out there and you're questing, so actually write to them as part of your journaling. And what often happens is that you build a much stronger understanding through that process of journaling of what it is that caused that dark night in the first place, but also of what the desire is that you want, what's going to be different. And this is a really important part. I was saying that to focus in on the flame, you know, and it's sort of invoking what you want that flame to be, which is probably the most difficult part of the dark night of the soul, is that we don't believe in that time that it can get better. We might believe it, but we can't feel it. It's probably a better way of saying it. If you've been through a number of dark nights of the soul, you're in a place of you're sort of going, well, I know I've survived it before and I've come out the other end. And so I have that faith, which again is a gift to the mystic. So they journey out and then they come back and they build our faith as they do that. But our body can't feel it because our body is feeling the lack and the loss. And so the more that we're able to light the flame, so you could light a candle, for example, it doesn't have to go out there and do your bonfire, but if you can, that's really wonderful. And it's to really feel into the desired future. To say, this is what I'm hoping for. This is what the dark night of the soul is teaching me about what was important in the past that I no longer have. And I'm ready for the next thing. And I would like to feel this way when it comes. So let me give you an example that's more for the world right now. Individually, we all have our own expectations, our own dreams, our own desires for a better future for ourselves, for whatever it is that we've lost, saying, I know that I can't have what I've lost, but what's available to me now? What is the flame calling me to? We are collectively experiencing a dark night of the soul. And the Nauthiz Rune teaches us at this point, especially with our mystic selves, that the amount of time that we spend focusing in on what's wrong needs to be balanced by the amount of time we focus on what it is that we want for a better future, what we want to be right. So peace is what we want. We're kindling the need fire for peace, not just tolerance, but celebration of each other. We're kindling the need fire for that, for an end to war. We're kindling the need fire for that. And it's that ability to hold that energy and to work with the Nauthiz Rune as the space of hope, and to name what it is that we hope for, which is the journey through the dark night of the soul towards the flame of hope that's coming through. Let me have a look and see if we've got some other comments there. Yes, Suzanne, you're absolutely right. So Isa does the integration work. It's that, which we'll be looking at a lot more when we look at the seer self as well. That the mystic self is the journeying out part, whether you're talking about a tiny part of you, or an intentional part of you because you're out doing a journey, or a part of you that's journeying out because it's fragmented from the self and it's got a job to do and it needs to come back again. The process is the same. So we can work with Nauthiz through, I've mentioned drumming, I've mentioned literally lighting a flame. We can work with it for journeying to, if you're not able to go and sit on a beautiful hill and light your fire, then you can absolutely do a journey with Nauthiz where you sit in the space of the dark and you want to be in that space of the dark, sort of breathe into it and say, yes, this is where I am now. And I accept that and I recognize this. And then to do that process of kindling your need fire, which you could do with song or with drumming, and you can trace the Nauthiz Rune over your fire in your journeying space. You can also use, I've got the YouTube video, so you can go to my page on Nauthiz, www.meganrose.com. So if you look at the Explore the Runes section, you can go down to Nauthiz and you'll find the YouTube meditation there. You'll find lots more about the rune as well. And you'll also find there everything, actually, the Nauthiz Rune for me right now is a really important energy for me to be able to step into. Perhaps I've experienced multiple dark nights of the soul, or I'm in one that I'm really stuck in right now. You do the awakening process, which is part of the larger Awaken to the Runes program. You can say, I want to work with this as my partner, so as my healing partner to support me. You can do that straight from the webpage on Megan Rose. I should also say that the Awaken to the Runes program is a year-long program. It is well underway at the moment. We're journeying through North right now on the program, but Awaken 26-27 is now open for you to join, which allows you to do the full year-long program starting in June, end of June, July. If you join now, you will also get access to Suna's Star Wheel, which then means that you have all of the lovely Suna Star Wheel resources to support you when you come to the community rune circle, and there's lots of other things as well that you can do. So if you feel like actually my need fire is lighting my way towards a future in which I have a much more sort of in-depth, rich, powerful relationship with the runes as partners in my life as I walk my spiritual road, then now is the time to seize that moment. So those opportunities are available to you. And so for those of you who are live, let me know, because I know obviously we've got Nauthiz is a really powerful rune, but I know that you've got the other runes working with, and it would be, if you want to share the rune that you're working with right now, let me know. Which rune are you working with right now? And we'll see what it is that they have to offer for you at this point. It can be really wonderful looking at the seer part to do a reading if you feel like, I'm in Nauthiz, I'm in that space of the dark night of the soul, and I want to light the fire. You can invoke the Nauthiz rune, but you can also do a reading for yourself and say which rune will partner with me to journey through this dark night, because it might be that Nauthiz is the signifier to say this is where I am, but there is a specific rune that offers different energies that you can then work with as a partner to help you move through that. So let me see. Obviously, I'm having problems because I'm catching up much slower on your comments than the people who are here live. So yes, if I see any in the next couple of minutes where you share your rune, we'll do a little bit of a dive into how Nauthiz works with the runes that come up for people before I talk to you about awaken, shouldn't I? Let's, as Suzanne, as you've mentioned ESA for integration, I'll mention a little bit about ESA, and then we'll see if anybody else comes up for a couple more runes. So if we have Nauthiz and ESA, we have that sense, as Maggie has said, of needing to be in that space of self-care and presence. And the ESA rune, like all of the other runes, offers negatives and it offers positives. So it can come up in a reading. It could say, right, if you were to do a little reading and you say, okay, I've got the Nauthiz rune, I'm in the dark night of the soul. If you got an ESA in that context, it would be about saying, this is the self. We're talking about the ego. This is the part that's saying, I don't want to welcome in that part of me that's gone. I don't want this breaking process. I don't want this evolution. I want to stay as I was because I was happy there. So ESA is one of its emanations, is the rune of the ego itself. So it's the resistance to welcoming in the new. Just sort of saying, I don't want to learn anything. You can see this in the world with people who are ignoring the feedback that they're getting and saying, no, I can't hear you, everything's fine, it's my way or the highway. They're very much sort of in ego, and they sort of get stuck in that ESA space. They lose more and more of themselves, and then we end up with an ESA shell, which doesn't have all of the depth. It's only the ego then, because the rest of the self is gone out, like desperately sort of journeying and saying, right, I'm going to try and find my way back into healing. And it's that sense of resisting, because it's painful, the process of self-healing and of personal evolution and of development. And we end up with this sort of ESA shell ego. So I'm not saying, obviously, if that happens to you, then you're already saying, oh, I'm willing, I want to look at this, and I want to take the deep journey, as we were talking about. But it might be that there is some resistance in there that you then need to sort of say, okay, what do I need to do in order to really care for myself, to make this an easier passage of transformation? So self-care and rest, healing practices, but it might also be that actually going and working with somebody who can support you on that journey would be a really, really powerful thing to do. Whereas if you got ESA as which rune is going to be my partner, then it would be much more about, okay, you are able to do that integration like yourself, and it's patience. It's like offering that rune of patience and saying, I'll welcome the part of me back slowly, and I'm not going to be like, I've got to rush through it. ESA counsels that slowness, that slow integration, and bringing in the ESA rune song with the Nauthiz, so that you have the fire and the ice in equal balance with each other, can offer that stillness, that place of stillness, and that place of welcoming. And yeah, it's beautiful. Those two runes work really beautifully as energies together. So it could signify that actually you're ready to work with the two runes together if you get them as ESA as your partner rune. Let me see. We've got Ewas for Helen. Out of sequence, but that's what's come up for me. Absolutely, and that's why it's nice to ask. So Krista, ESA's been really present for you lately, so it might be that could. So let's do Ewas and then we'll finish there. So Helen, for your Ewas rune, Elwaz is the rune. It looks like this. It looks like a little M. For people who don't know the Elwaz rune, it's very confusing because it looks like the modern capital M for us, but it's actually the S sound. So it's not Manaz, which is the M sound. It's got the little crossbar, which doesn't have the crossbar. It just looks like an M. Here we go. I try and remember it nicely because if you turn it on its side, it looks a bit more like a capital E. So Elwaz. And it's the rune of partnership. It's the rune of speed. And it's a brilliant rune for exactly what we have been talking about. Instead of working with Isa, which is the rune of the ego and that rune of stillness, this is the rune of the two parts of the self coming back together and holding hands with each other and working in partnership and saying, yes, I trust you. So for you, again, it would depend on where you are in terms of your own practice. If you're quite an experienced practitioner, this could well be saying undertake a journey for yourself to actually go do your power animal out and actually do shamanic work to retrieve that part of the soul and to bring it back, as we were talking about at the very beginning. So it's actually saying there's a readiness for reintegration that isn't just about sort of sitting on the hill and saying, come back to me, I'm welcome, you are home. It's about actually using your practices, your healing practices. Again, if you're like, well, actually, that for me, I'm not confident or comfortable doing that. For me, that would represent somebody else could do this work with you. So, I'm actually, there's a part of me that's been out there for quite a long time. It might be part of the soul that's been out there. I've been in the dark night of the soul perhaps for so long that I don't even recognize it's dark anymore. And there's a part that wants to come back and it's ready and ready to extend that hand. So this is actually a very powerful rune to get if you get the Nauthiz rune that says you're in that space of the dark night, because it is the partnership with spirit and the reunification of the different parts of the self coming together. Manaz, by the way, comes immediately after Ewaz. Ewaz is that partnership together, and then Manaz is the reintegration, which you will see through the rune row that you have these themes. They offer different ways of working and different methods of understanding. So that process of sort of separation and reintegration occurs again late in the second eight as well. And Ewaz is that practice of reintegration. So very, very connected with the Nauthiz rune as well, of saying, right, we're ready for our return. Let me see what else we've got. So, Meg, it's funny enough, at DWW we did a Nauthiz section, which was very lighting need file. Wonderful. So, this Nauthiz is going to be an energy that's very present for us at the moment. So it's an ideal time, if you're not already diving into your Nauthiz resource, to do that and to do your work with sort of chanting, inviting in the Nauthiz rune and journeying with it. Absolutely go and use my YouTube meditation. Yeah, it's a meditation. And we're going to be returning to the Nauthiz rune and looking at through the lens of the seer at our next live session here in the Hearthspace. If you have been with me live, thank you so much. It's really nice to be able to do a few little sort of energy readings for people at the end there. That's the sort of like little extra bonus that you get if you come to the Hearthspace sessions live. We'll always try and fit in a couple of people at the end so we can see how the personal powers that you're working with are interacting with the runes that are really powerful for us. If you're watching the recording, please do share what are your main takeaways, where are you with your runes, where are you with your practice, and what has this given to you around thinking about the dark night of the soul and this idea that it's a quest. It's a quest that is happening for us all of the time. We're always fragmenting and then repairing and integrating. But the Nauthiz rune will often signify that that's quite a substantive soul journey that we're on. So tell me how that speaks to you with that. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.